Namaste. My name is Janapati Das. Welcome to the Shri Ishopanishad class. We will be reading through another chapter, another mantra today. As usual, I'd like to offer my respects to you. Thank you for tuning in constantly. Feel free to make comments on the YouTube page, on the posts. Like and subscribe if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet. I would like to take this opportunity to offer my most humble obeisances unto my spiritual master, Jagat Guru, Siddhaswara Bhananda Paramahamsa Srila Prabhupada, and to His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are reading through our Shri Ishopanishad and reading both the Prabhupada's purports. And as always, we will start with our hearing and chanting of Krishna's names. So please join along. Namo Siddha Swarupananda Paramahamsa Namine Haribo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto. Okay, so I believe we're on mantra 12 today in the Shri Ishopanishad. Mantra 12. Okay, we will, as always, start from our beginning and work our way through. The invocation. The personality of Godhead is perfect and complete, and because he is completely perfect, all emanations from him, such as this phenomenal world, are perfectly equipped as a complete whole. Whatever is produced of the complete whole is also complete by itself. And because he is the complete whole, even though so many complete units emanate from him, he remains the complete balance. Mantra 1. Everything animate or inanimate that is within the universe is controlled and owned by the Lord. One should therefore accept only those things necessary for himself which are set aside as his quota, and one must not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. One may aspire to live for hundreds of years if he continuously goes on doing work in that way, because that sort of work will not bind him to the law of karma, and there is no alternative to this way for man. The killer of the soul, whoever he may be, must enter into the planets known as the worlds of the faithless, full of darkness and ignorance. The personality of Godhead, although fixed in his abode, is more swift than the mind and can overcome all others running. The powerful demigods cannot approach him. Although in one place he has control over those who supply the air and rain, he surpasses all in excellence. The Supreme Lord walks and does not walk. He is far away, but he is very near as well. He is within everything, and again he is outside of everything. A person who sees everything in relation to the Supreme Lord and sees all entities as his parts and parcels, and who sees the Supreme Lord within everything, never hates anything nor any being. One who always sees all living entities as spiritual sparks in quality, one with the Lord, becomes as a true knower of things. What is there as illusion or anxiety for him? Such a person must know, in fact, the greatest of all, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminate, the self-sufficient philosopher who is awarding everyone's desire since time immemorial. Those who are engaged in the culture of nescient activities shall enter into the darkest region of ignorance, where still are those engaged in the so-called culture of knowledge. The wise have explained to us that one result is derived from the culture of knowledge, and it is said that a different result is obtained from the culture of nescience. Only one who can learn the process of nescience and that of transcendental knowledge side by side can transcend the influence of repeated birth and death and enjoy the full blessings of immortality. Okay, mantra 12. Andam tamaha paravishanti yeshambhutim upashate tato bhuvya ivate tamau yau sambudyam rataha. Andam, ignorance, tamaha, darkness, pravishanti, do enter into, those, ashambhutim, demigods, upashate, do worship, tata, more than that, bhuya, again, iva, like that, te, those, tamaha, darkness, those, also, sambhutyam, in the absolute, rata, engaged. Translation, mantra 12. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the absolute. Purport. The Sanskrit word ashambhuti means those who have no independent existence. So, in the verse, in the words, Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada translates Asambhutim as demigods. Demigods, many people think, and even many Hindus think as well, that it's a polytheistic religion, Hinduism. But Hinduism is a pretty big umbrella. I'm going to straighten this a little bit. Okay. All right. That's, I guess, a little better. But demigods, there are empowered living entities. They are jivatmas who are in empowered position, different, just like a company has many different managers and positions that make sure the company runs well. So Krishna has posts for different positions of the affairs of the universe. But they are not independent. They may sometimes in the stories like Lord Indra or Lord Brahma, they may forget and think that they are the all in all. It's very easy to do when you are a conditioned living entity, but not only that, you're also in a very big position of power, and you're in charge of all the weather. Like Lord Indra, he had all these followers following him, servants, and he had the clouds and the thunder and the lightning under his control. But this was only because Krishna allowed him to have those positions. And Krishna taught him a very straightforward lesson that Lord Indra learned very clearly, as we know from the story of Govardhan Hill. Sambhuti is the absolute personality of Godhead. So when we put the A in front of the word, of course, it negates or flips the meaning. So we have the Sambhuti, who is the supreme, he's independent of everyone. We actually, our only independence we have as living entities is a little bit of free will to make that choice. Are we going to be under the jurisdiction of Krishna? Are we going to be under the jurisdiction of Maya Devi? There is no middle. Like, we're not ever really in control of our own thing. We're always under control of something. So there really is no independence. In the Bhagavad Gita, the absolute personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, positively describes himself in the following words: I am the supreme cause of the powers delegated to the demigods, the great sages, and the mystics. And because these are endowed with limited powers, it is very difficult for them to know how I appear myself, my own internal potency in the form of a man. It's like Indra is like those tiny friend to Krishna, a little boy. He's telling everybody to stop offering me the sacrifice. The great King Indra. He's just this insignificant boy who doesn't have understanding about universal affairs. That's what, we know the story of Govardhan Hill. He's very puffed up and completely under ignorance. All philosophers and great rishis or mystics try to distinguish the absolute from the relative by their tiny brain power. Tiny brain power. Yeah. Even the atheist is like, how can God do this? How can God do that? How can we conceive of something that is beyond our brain power? And the atheist will deny the existence of God based on their own of being incomprehensible or irrelevant or, doesn't quite make sense from empirical philosophy. We understand that God is God. He is beyond, he is transcendent, he is beyond the ability of our brain power, our ability to conceive or to speculate or to understand. We can only come to know Krishna by devotional service, by surrendering our life to our spiritual master in Krishna and receiving the absolute truth from Krishna. Only by that can we do it. We cannot do it by our own. We cannot climb Krishna. We cannot achieve understanding of Krishna by the ascending process. However, this can only help them reach the point of negating relativity without realizing any positive trace of the absolute. Definition of the absolute by negation is not a complete concept. Such negative definitions lead one to create a concept of his own, and one that imagines that the absolute must be formless and without qualities. So it's very easy for people to come into this conclusion that God is just formless because everything we see in the world is temporary. And so to try to understand things from things that we see around, we say that can't be it. So therefore, if it's not there and we can't, God is beyond all forms, he must be beyond the concepts of this material world, and then therefore he must just be formless. That's the only thing that they can conceive of that would fit their definition of this. So and it's partially true. The Brahma Jyoti is a formless part of that is a God realization. It is the lowest form of God realization, but it doesn't mean that Krishna is Satchidananda Vigraha. He has a spiritual form of eternal bliss and full of knowledge. But these negations are simply the opposite numbers of the relative forms and qualities and are themselves therefore relative, right? So we keep coming up with, what I think. This is what I think. This is my concept of God. I've come this concept before with people I've known, and they come up with statements like, everybody believes that their absolute truth, that their truth is the absolute truth, and actually there is no absolute truth. And then I say, well, you're making an absolute truth statement by saying that, so therefore is your truth the absolute truth, and are you therefore God? So atheists all the times will contradict themselves by trying to make this statement. But these negations are simply the opposite numbers of relative forms and qualities, and are themselves therefore relative. By such a concept of the absolute, one can at the utmost reach to the impersonal effulgence of God known as Brahman, but one cannot make any further progress of the stage of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Such mental speculators do not know that Krishna is the absolute personality of Godhead, and that the impersonal Brahman is the glaring effulgence of his transcendental body, while Paramatman, the supersoul, is his all-pervading representation. They do not know that Krishna has his eternal form with transcendental qualities of eternal bliss and knowledge. The dependent demigods and great sages imperfectly realize him as one of the powerful demigods, but they consider that the Brahman effulgence is the ultimate absolute truth. Krishna's devotees, however, who by dint of their unalloyed devotion surrender unto him, can know that he is the absolute person, and that everything emanates from him only. Such devotees continuously render loving service unto Krishna, the fountainhead of everything. So impersonalists, at the best, their idea of bhakti is because their conclusion is that God is formless, they therefore will put a picture of Krishna or Shiva or anybody, really, even mirrors sometimes of themselves when they think, because it's all one, right? So they will try to merge into this form that they have in front of them. They leave the form behind. But the devotee of Krishna understands that the form of Krishna is Krishna. It's not like we try to merge into Krishna's body. That is only Brahman realization. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that only bewildered persons driven by a strong desire for sense gratification worship the demigods for the satisfaction of temporary problems. So yeah, even many religious people will worship God just so they can get what they need to get in the material world. Please give me this girl. Please let me marry this person. Please let me have this job. Please let my football team win. Please don't let my grandmother die. So many things that they try. And, I remember I would go with my godbrother to chant at the Hindu temple, and they have these statues of deities of different, Lakshmi and Saraswati and Durga and Shiva, all these different demigods, Indra. And people would go to, to Durga, and they'd be praying for a good, success in their business, and we're over there chanting. No one's coming over there hearing the chanting, but they're not saying, oh, let's go to chant with them and chant Krishna's names. This is what they do. They're really non-different than a materialist. A temporary relief from a certain difficulty by the grace of some demigod is the demand of less intelligent persons. So these are, to be in a position to know this stuff and then use it to try to get more material gratification is not very intelligent. The living being is in the material entanglement. He has to be relieved from material bondage entirely to obtain permanent relief on the spiritual plane where eternal bliss, life, and knowledge exist. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the worshippers of the demigods can go to the planets of their respective demigods. The moon worshippers can go to the moon, the sun worshippers can go to the planet of the sun, and so on. Modern scientists are now trying to go to the moon with the help of rockets, which is not really a new attempt. The human being with his advanced consciousness is naturally inclined to travel in outer space and to reach other planets either by Sputniks, by mystic powers, or by worshiping the particular predominating deity on that planet. In the Vedic scriptures, it is said that one can reach other planets in any of the ways mentioned above, most generally by worshiping the demigods presiding over the particular planet. But these planets are temporary residential places, and only permanent planets are the Vaikuntha Lokas, found in the spiritual sky where the personality of Godhead predominates. The Bhagavad Gita confirms this as follows: even though one may rise to the highest planet Brahma Loka, one has to come back again. But if someone attains to me in the spiritual worlds, he does not have to take birth again. Shri Ishopanishad suggests that one remains in the darkest region by hovering over the material planets, whenever his means may be. The whole universe is covered by the gigantic material elements, just like a coconut ball half filled with water. As it is airtight and fully covered, the darkness within is dense, and therefore planets like the sun and the moon are required to illuminate the inside of the universe. Outside the universe, there is a vast expansion of unlimited Brahmajyoti space full of Vaikuntha Lokas. The biggest and the highest planet in the Brahmajyoti is the Krishna Loka, or Goloka Vrindavan, where the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, resides. Lord Shri Krishna never quits this Krishna Loka, where he dwells with his eternal associates, and yet he is omnipresent throughout the complete material and spiritual cosmic situation. This fact has already been explained in Mantra 4 of Shri Ishopanishad. The Lord is present everywhere, as the sun is. A man can move through space with the highest possible speed, and still he will find that the sun is there, although the sun is situated in its own undeviating orbit. The problem of life cannot be solved by going to the moon. There are many pseudo-worshippers who become religionists for the sake of name and fame only. Such pseudo-religionists do not wish to get out of this universe and reach the spiritual sky. They want only to maintain the status quo in the material world under the garb of worshiping the Lord. And the atheists and impersonalists lead such foolish pseudo-religionists into the darkest regions by preaching the cult of atheism. The atheist directly denies the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the impersonalist supports the atheist by preaching the impersonal existence of the Supreme Lord. As far as we have gone through Shri Ishopanishad, we have not come across any mantra where the personality of Godhead is denied. It is said that he can run faster than anyone. Those who are running after the planets are certainly persons, and if the Lord can run faster than all of them, why should he be considered impersonal? The impersonal conception of the Supreme Lord is another face of ignorance, due to the imperfect vision of the absolute truth. And so the ignorant pseudo-religionists, the manufacturers of so-called incarnations directly violating the Vedic injunctions, are liable to enter into the darkest region of the universe on account of their business of misleading those who follow them. So we have talked about in the past with the people who create the culture of nescience, the things that make it so that the culture of nescience is stimulated, whether it be through pornography, the creators of pornography, or the creators of different things to make it so that people can have greater sources of slaughterhouse meat. These people are actually worse than the people actually partaking of it. And similarly, those people who are misleading people to lead people into the darkest culture of nescience, here the impersonalists, are worse than those people that are following them. But they're bad either way. These impersonalists generally pose themselves as incarnations of God to the foolish who have no knowledge of the Vedic wisdom. And if such foolish men have any knowledge at all, it is more dangerous in the hands than ignorance itself. Such impersonalists do not even worship the demigods as is recommended in the scriptures. They may, do a show of worshiping demigods, have pictures of Shiva and, Durga and Krishna, but they don't follow how it's supposed to be done according to the Vedic scriptures. They just manufacture their own ideas about what these things mean. In the scriptures, there is recommendation for worshiping the demigods under different circumstances, but at the same time, it is said there is no real need for this. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that the result of worshiping the demigods are not permanent. The whole material world is not permanent, and therefore anything achieved here within the darkness of material existence is also impermanent. So everything is impermanent. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end for everything that we try to achieve, including our own body and our time here. The problem then is how to obtain real and permanent life. That is the problem. That is also the solution. The Lord states that as soon as one reaches him by devotional service, which is the one and only way to approach the personality of Godhead, there is complete freedom from the bondage of birth and death. In other words, the path of salvation, or getting out of the material clutches, fully depends on the principles of knowledge and detachment. And the pseudo-religionists have neither knowledge nor detachment from material affairs. Most of them want to continue in the golden shackles of material bondage. I love that, golden shackles. Yeah, they're like, ooh, look at my, bling bling. It's like, I got these great shackles. They got my arms connected. I can't get away from it, but they look good. They sure are great. Aren't they pretty? I'm gonna do a selfie on Instagram and show my golden shackles. Golden shackles of material bondage, under the shadow of altruistic and philanthropic activities, and in the name of religious principles. By false religious sentiments, they present a make show of devotional service, indulging in all sort of immoral principles. Oh my God, this is so real. I mean, you have to do, there's this whole new reinterpretation of Christianity that's trying to push the LGBTQ and weird, perverted, transgender philosophies, and citing their own interpretations of what Jesus said, or Jesus never said this in the Bible, therefore it's okay for us to do this. And they show up in their Instagram videos with pink hair and their robe of a priest or something, and just preaching the worst and most demoniac philosophies. But they are, and people are like, look, these are even the priests, these more enlightened priests are coming out and telling us the true meaning of what Jesus Christ taught. But they're indulging in all sorts of immoral principles that have to do mostly definitively about identification with the body and identification with the mind. I am a transgender. I am gay. I am lesbian. I am not a boy. I am a girl. I that. It's like, this is completely contrary to the Vedic conclusions of and even just the basic understanding that you are not the body and you are not the mind. And still pass spiritual masters, and so people post these people and they're they're very wise, very intelligent person, because they're confirming our base desires in the material world. So they are still put the past as spiritual masters and devotees of God. Such violators of religious principles have no respect for the authoritative acharyas, the holy teachers in the strict disciplic succession, and to mislead the people in general. They themselves become so-called acharyas without even following the principles of the acharyas. So acharya means to follow in the footsteps of those great saintly people in the past. But if you think about the great saints and the people what they were teaching and what's being taught by these so-called acharyas, it's in contradiction. So you should stay away from these people. They're demoniac and they will mislead you and lead you to hell. These rogues in human society are the most dangerous elements, and for want of religious government they pass on without being punished by the law of the state. They cannot avoid the law of the Supreme, who has clearly declared in the Bhagavad Gita that these envious demons in the garb of religious propagandists shall be thrown down into the darkest region of hell. It is confirmed in Shri, Ishopanishad, that the pseudo-religionists are headed towards the most obnoxious place in the universe after finishing with the spiritual mastership business, which is simply for the matter of sense gratification. It's a heavy purport, but it's really wonderful. Let's read now from Jagaguru Siddhaswarapananda, Mantra 12. This is also kind of a long purport as well. Those who are engaged in the worship of demigods enter into the darkest region of ignorance, and still more so do the worshippers of the impersonal absolute. People who are very materialistic and poorly educated are easily seduced into demigod worship. Behind the worship of the demigod is usually the aim of getting some material benefit, a good harvest, a good husband or wife, a successful business, good health, and so on. So God becomes sort of the gods become sort of this order supplier, provide us with, everything we need to be happy in this material world. Often people worship a particular demigod to satisfy a particular desire or to solve a particular problem, such as illness or personal poverty. Not only are they in ignorance already, but such demigod worship leads them into even deeper into ignorance, into false bodily identification and materialistic self-centered consciousness. Their envy and desire for power, fame, and wealth increase, leading them into deeper ignorance of their true identity as eternal spirit souls, dominated parts and parcels of the Supreme Soul. If they realize their true identity, they would also realize that it is to Him that they should be rendering loving service. But demigods worshippers often fall into the illusion that their demigod is the Supreme Lord Himself. Thus they are led further away from the Lord. It is understandable that a person who is uneducated in spiritual matters could mistakenly conclude that a demigod or even a great mystic or sage is God. So even in Christianity, either people believe that Jesus is God, or they believe that God is an impersonal force. He's a burning bush. He's just, he's unapproachable. So we have Jesus to, we surrender to Jesus as the great devotee of God. Even though he's saying you should love the Lord God with your whole heart, whole mind, whole being, they don't know what that means. So after all, the demigods, or even some mystics, have great powers. Since a materialistic person is used to worshiping material power, it is not surprising that he may be so impressed by a powerful demigod or mystic yogi that he may worship him as a supreme lord. But an intelligent person is not so easily fooled. Some of these yogis, or so-called yogis, or incarnations of God or whatever, they've developed some special mystic power, tricks that they can do, or they can do things with their chi, or they can make things manifest, little ashes manifest in their hand, and people are like, whoa, it's like when you watch these people doing magic tricks and you don't know what they are, and you're just like, wow, they must be just this great person. In ancient Vedic text, Srimad Bhagavatam records the most instructive incident, a conversation between Lord Brahma, the powerful demigod in charge of creating this material universe, and his disciple Narada. Narada had thought that his spiritual master, Lord Brahma, was the supreme Lord because of Lord Brahma's wonderful, powerful characteristics. So Lord Brahma was in the post of being the creator of the universe. There is a Lord Brahma for every universe that is a creator, very powerful, all the knowledge received from Lord Vishnu on how to create the universe, how to maintain the universe. And his disciple, Narada Muni, thought that Lord Brahma, being so powerful as he was God. After all, the creation of the universe is no small mystical feat. No, I've just been watching these videos about how vast this universe, which is only in 10 or 12 dimensions, and there are just unlimited universes with millions of dimensions, much larger in the material world. But just trying to fathom, people can't even imagine with their little pea brain what a vast and humongous universe this is. Just even our solar system alone, you would have to take a spaceship. It would take, just your whole lifetime to try to go across. But even to the nearest galaxy, and there are just trillions of galaxies of these galaxies in the universe, trillions and trillions of what we've known. We're still finding more, and some are very much larger than the Milky Way. The Milky Way is relatively small, but to try to reach from one end, from going from the speed of light to the end of the Milky Way would take, I think it was something like 7.5 million years or something like that to try to get across, going at the speed of light. The speed of light. I think the speed of light is something like 80,000 miles a second or something like that. It's just I don't know, maybe more than that, but it's just, anyway. So the point being is that it's not we have to imagine there is a creator of this universe, and he is a material living entity. He's a Jivatma in a very powerful situation, but he's not God. And Lord Narada Muni was realizing this and brought the question to him. After all, the creation of the universe is no small mystical feat, yet Narada began to doubt that Lord Brahma was truly the Supreme Lord, the cause of all causes, when he saw that Lord Brahma evidently worshipped someone else. Following is a short portion of the conversation between Lord Brahma and Narada Muni, to which we have added some brief purports. Shri Narada Muni asked Brahmaji, O chief amongst the demigods, O firstborn living entity, I beg to offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please tell me that transcendental knowledge which specifically directs one to the truth of the absolute individual soul and the supersoul. My dear Father, please describe factually the symptoms of this manifest world. What is its background? How is it created? How is it conserved? And under whose control is all this being done? My dear Father, all this is known to you scientifically because whatever was created in the past, whatever will be created in the future, and whatever is being created at present, as well as everything within the universe, is within your grip, just like a walnut. My dear Father, what is the source of your knowledge? Under whose protection are you standing? And under whom are you working? What is your real position? Do you alone create all entities with material elements by your personal energy? So that's from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th chapter, 1st to 4th verse. After paying all his respect to Lord Brahma, his spiritual master, Narada refused to act with duplicity. He paid his respects to Lord Brahma as the creator of the universe, as an immensely powerful being, and as, after all, his spiritual master. So we worship the spiritual master like the Supreme Lord, because he is the external manifestation of Krishna's mercy. He is non-different than Krishna in that sense. But he is not God. So we worship him as the spiritual master, and as a representative of Krishna, Narada Muni was worshiping Lord Brahma accordingly. He was not afraid to put his questions forward respectfully but directly. In the next two verses, Narada then again acknowledged the powerful position of Brahmaji. As the spider very easily creates the networks of its cobweb and manifests its power of creation without being defeated by others, so also you yourself, by employment of your self-sufficient energy, create without any other's help. Whatever we can understand by the nomenclature, characteristics, and features of a particular thing, superior, inferior, or equal, eternal, or temporary, are not created from any source other than that of your Lordship. Thou art so great. Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th chapter, 5th to 6th verse. In the next verse, Narada directly expresses his doubt that Brahmaji was God himself by saying, "Yet we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you when we think of your great austerities and perfect discipline, although your good self is so powerful in the matter of creation." So Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th chapter, 7th verse. So Narada is observing that Brahma is worshiping someone other than himself, and as a good disciple, asks intelligent questions and puts that forth to Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma, of course, will not be upset, but actually very overjoyed to be able to praise Krishna. Narada knew that Lord Brahma had undergone strict austerities and penances. He knew that Brahmaji had achieved self-realization through such meditation practices. In other words, Narada logically suspected that Brahma himself had undergone austerities, meditation, and so forth in order to achieve self-realization. He could not be God. So God doesn't need to go and do it. He doesn't need to meditate. I mean, Krishna would do that as, a good householder. He set the example of doing fire sacrifices and meditations. And he would actually meditate on himself because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But he didn't need to meditate to realize that he was Krishna, or he was actually a spirit soul or something. Lord Brahma, however, is different. Narada finally logically concluded that God would not need to undergo any process of self-realization in order to find out his identity. Narada understood that God, the Supreme Lord, has no superior to be worshipped. God means God. God is God. God is the source of all things. There's nothing higher or greater. There's nothing beyond Krishna. And so when people are doing their little pea brains are doing these little kind of whatever mind trickery things like, if God created the universe, and then who created God? Well, nobody created God. God is God. Just stupid. Since Lord Brahma obviously worshipped some superior power, and since he was enlightened by that superior power, Narada wanted to know all about it. He wanted to know about this supreme being. This is disciplic succession, right? You want to learn about Krishna. You want to learn about the supreme absolute truth from your spiritual master. Unfortunately, many people interested in spiritual realization are not as intelligent or careful as Narada. Many people blindly accept that the creator of this universe is the Supreme Lord, the cause of all causes, when in fact there are countless millions of universes, each with a creator called a Lord Brahma. What to speak of such people who mistakenly worship the creator of the universe as God? Millions of people worship mystic yogis whose power is relatively insignificant as God, just because they can exhibit a few more psychic powers than the ordinary person can. So, very foolish for those people, but the foolish people want to follow fools, it's just, they do what they want. They think, oh, wow, very cool cosmic stuff. Like he can make these stuff manifest. He must be God. I mean, Krishna did so many amazing things that were really not as amazing of what he could really do. Lifting Govardhan Hill with his pinky, killing so many demons, and but also just being able to all the universes, all the material worlds manifest by his glance without him directly having to create anything. Narada is a perfect example of a bona fide disciple. Even though his guru, Lord Brahma, was immensely powerful, still Narada did not blindly accept him as the Supreme Lord himself. So this is an important point. When you're following, your spiritual life is so important. You can't just blindly accept anybody. encouraged in the Vedic system to ask questions, to apply things, to listen carefully, to listen to the Lord in your heart. Is this person who's claiming that he's God's representative saying exactly what is in the scriptures, what I'm hearing in my heart, or does it contradict things? You have to listen, you have to consider, and not just be a blind follower. Just because a spiritual master looks the part or something. Narada gave him all the respect due to God, since he knew that the Guru is the representative of God, and that Scripture says to give the same respect to Guru as to God. Yet still Narada did not blindly accept that his Guru was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. And what was Lord Brahma's reaction to his disciples' doubt? A fake Guru wants his followers to believe that he is God himself. That's why he tries to impress him with his mystic powers. If the disciple of a phony guru were to express doubts about his guru's lordship, the guru would surely be angered. So how did Brahma react when Narada asked the questions? Under whose protection are you standing? Under whom are you working? What is your real position? And how did he react when Narada asked, yet we are moved to wonder about the existence of someone more powerful than you when we think of your great austerities and perfect discipline? In response, Brahmaji was not angry. In fact, he was extremely pleased, as a spiritual master would be pleased. The true representative of Krishna would be pleased if they can help a person see Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As a bona fide guru, Brahma's happiness was in glorifying the Supreme Lord, and Lord Narada's question gave him the opportunity to do just that. Thus Lord Brahma replied. So it's important because the spiritual master is not interested in having people worship him. He knows that's what's pleasing to Krishna, so he allows those things to happen. But he's actually happy when people glorify and chant Krishna's names, glorify Krishna. That's his true happiness, his success. My dear boy Narada, being merciful to all, including me, you have asked all these questions because I have been inspired to see the prowess of the Almighty Personality of Godhead. Whatever you have spoken about me is not false, because unless and until one is aware of the personality of Godhead, who is the ultimate truth beyond me, one is sure to be illusioned by observing my powerful activities. So he's basically saying, people will look, if they're not intelligent enough, they will look to what great powers I have. And it's, to create the universe is extremely amazing powers. I mean, that would lead many people to think that the creator of the universe is the Supreme Lord. But he's actually saying that, people will be illusioned unless they are aware of Krishna. I create after the Lord's creation by his personal effulgence known as the Brahmajyoti, just as when the sun manifests its fire, the moon, the firmament, the influential planets, and the twinkling stars also manifest their brightness. That's Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th chapter, 9th to 11th verse. Lord Brahma also put forward the same conclusion in another Vedic scripture, the Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, verse 40, where he prayed, I serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Govinda, the primeval Lord, whose transcendental bodily effulgence, known as the Brahmajyoti, which is unlimited, unfathomed, and all-pervasive, is the cause of the creation of the unlimited numbers of planets, etc., with varieties of climates and specific conditions of life. Lord Brahma continued in his reply to Narada, I offer my obeisances and meditate upon Lord Krishna Vasudeva, the personality of Godhead, whose invincible potency influences them, the less intelligent class of men, to call me the Supreme Controller. Srimad Bhagavatam, 2nd Canto, 5th verse, chapter 12, verse 12. Brahma expressed the same sentiment in the Brahma Samhita, chapter 5, verse 1. The Supreme Lord is the personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna, the primeval Lord in his transcendental body, the ultimate cause of all causes. I worship that primeval Lord Govinda. Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami praised the attitude of the spiritual master and demigod Lord Brahma, writing, Brahmaji is conscious of his actual position, and he knows how less intelligent persons, bewildered by the illusory energy of the Lord, whimsically accept anyone and everyone as God. A responsible personality like Brahmaji refuses to be addressed as the Supreme Lord by his disciples or subordinates, but foolish persons praised by men of the nature of dogs, hogs, camels, and asses feel flattered to be addressed as the Supreme Lord. So, yeah, if you are illusioned under Maya Devi, and you're posing yourself as a spiritual person because you are actually getting the material enjoyment of having people praise you and flatter your false ego, a spiritual master has no real joy in being worshipped by people. His joy is in helping imprisoned living entities come back to Krishna. And if they can do that, if they can follow their spiritual master, he knows that Krishna is pleased with that, and that makes him happy that his Lord of his life is pleased that he's doing something right by having these people come and follow him. The 12th mantra of the Shri Ishopanishad declares that those who worship the demigods as God enter the darkest region of ignorance, but that those who worship the impersonal feature of God, the Brahma Jyoti or Brahman effulgence, are even worse off. So an atheist is worse off than an impersonalist. One who worships the impersonal Brahman as the cause of all causes is considered to be in a very bad position. He is entirely incapable of achieving the true goal of life. Because you can't have love with an ocean. It's like you can't have a relationship. You think you are that. So you're not really having any kind of relationship. And so therefore your need to love and to be loved eternally, which is fulfilled by your relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is unfulfilled. So if you've merged into the white light and you come down, you think that you are all that. What most likely happens is people start altruistic means to help people because they want to love people, or they just, worst case scenario, they end up with in sexual relationships with their followers because they want to be loved still, and that desire is not being fulfilled with the love for God. One who worships the impersonal Brahman is the cause of all causes. Okay, so I read that. Once a person concludes that God is impersonal, then love for God becomes unachievable. After all, no one can love an impersonal force. Furthermore, one who has merged into the Brahman effulgence is unaware of his own individual existence and of the individual existence of the Supreme Lord in that merged condition. So being unaware of his own existence as an eternal spirit soul and being unaware of the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the impersonalist remains lost. Worst, actually, when he descends from his merged conditions, he is in the illusion that he has achieved perfect spiritual realization. After having that experience of temporarily merging into the Brahman and then returning to his body, he may wrongly conclude that he is God and that everyone is God and that the world is God. Thus he becomes practically an atheist in that he denies the existence of the Supreme Lord. As far as he is concerned, the impersonal Brahman has become the world and all living beings, and therefore the world and all living beings are God. In other words, the impersonalist becomes I am goddess. Thinking of himself as God, he sees no need to worship any other being or take shelter of any other being. Indeed, he believes he is the only being in existence, and the manifested world is just a dream springing from his mind. And also some of the worst case scenarios, people just engage in the most hedonistic activities, thinking that, well, it's me, therefore I can engage in this dreamlike world because it's part of me, because I am God. He may try to take the position of the Supreme Lord, believing himself to be the supreme dominator and enjoyer of all that he surveys. This is the darkest region of ignorance. He may try to act on illusion that he is God and that the world is his playground. He may come, in other words, as a super hedonist. One such I am goddess, Richard Alfred Ram Das, fortunately he was passed on, formerly a professor at Harvard University who took a bunch of LSD and decided he was God. The worst, sleeping around with his male disciples and declares that no one exists himself except oneself, and after that, merging with the impersonal Brahman, one returns to the world and is everyone. This is his quote. If you come back into form from having merged with God, you fill the form's bodies, though there is no one home. It is just more Leela, the dance of God. Oh, terrible. So he's basically saying there is no soul. There's no soul. It's just you entering into these bodies. You're just taking the form of all the things in the material world. It's just you, with a fucking most self-centered, selfish, worse than materialism, because it makes it about you and only you. Swami Muktananda, a well-known I Am Goddess, another great loser, who has thousands of followers, writes, assuming physical bodies, he appears as separate entities. Although to the I Am Goddess, the apparent existence of others is just an hallucination, and since you are God, you are the creator of the laws of the universe, or as Ram Dass puts it, you are the laws of the universe. Wow. And since you are the laws of the universe, since you are God, then there is no higher person or law to which you must subject yourself. So it's kind of like, well, why don't you just rob a bank, and see what happens, and see how well that theory, or, run a stop sign or stoplight. See how well that when the other car crashes into you, oh, I guess that was just part of me that just crashed into myself. Your will, your desire is God's desire, God's will, so there is no need whatsoever to check or control your desires or actions. As another I Am Goddess, Werner Erhard puts it, what you're doing is what God wants you to do. Be happy. God wants you to be a hedonist. So according to the I Am Goddess, since you and I, each of us is God, whatever you and I and others are doing is what God wants us to do. You can be engaging in the most illicit or the most heinous activities, but since you are God, you are doing the will of God, the will of yourself. Your will is God's will. In other words, the I Am Goddess does not feel the need to harmonize his will with God's will or something separate. He believes his will is God's will because he believes he is God. So this has actually happened with many so-called these gurus who are impersonalists. They actually get in trouble with the law because they're exploiting their disciples, and they're like, I'm God, and so they're just sleeping with their disciples and their disciples' children too. In a lot of cases, they're just pedophiles and just disgusting people. As Swami Muktananda advises his students, meditate on yourself, honor and worship your own self. So it's kind of hard to read this because it's just so blasphemous. Kneel to yourself because the supreme reality, the highest truth, lives within you as you. Many of these I Am Goddess end up as the most extreme of all hedonists, having illicit sex with their disciples, drinking alcohol, taking drugs, smoking, eating meat, and engaging in all kinds of debauchery. So the regulative principles in the Vedic system do not apply, because if you're God and you've created those things, you can break those things. So, and they do. I mean, a lot of these things that we listed, we're instructed not to, as one of the 4 regulative principles, not to abstain from alcohol and drugs, from smoking, from eating meat, from getting in illicit sex. That's really bad. They also declare that they can do so without being contaminated karmically because they are so spiritually advanced, and that's quotes, spiritually advanced. At the moment, the Western world, as well as India, is crawling with such charlatans. I love this word crawling, like they're cockroaches, And you can find them. They pop up in the most interesting way when you've got all these gurus of the 60s, passing on a whole new plethora of people with the internet. You can find them on TikTok and, the new age gurus, and I see it all the time. Even stars, even movie stars, it's kind of like, I've heard people like, who's the guy? The guy was in Shawshank Redemption, the black actor. He played God in some of his roles too, but he even said God, he said, I believe I am God. He said it himself. He doesn't surrender to anything but himself. One who worships the impersonal Brahman as the cause of all causes is in a very dangerous position. Morgan Freeman, that's who I was thinking of. To conclude that God is impersonal is to put oneself in an unprotected position. Everyone needs someone to love and serve eternally. If a person, a spirit soul, doesn't come to know the eternal supreme soul, then he obviously cannot place his love, his natural desire to serve, on the Supreme Lord. And if a person doesn't come to know and engage in the loving service of the Supreme Lord, then his tendency to love and serve will be directed toward the world and the forms of this world. Consequently, he will again become attached to the temporary material world. However, although those who worship the impersonal feature of God are in a very dangerous position, this does not mean that they cannot make advancement. There are many examples throughout history of great yogis who were not only realized in the personal Brahman, but were also very sincere. Due to their sincerity, they went beyond their limited vision of the absolute truth, i.e. their experience of the impersonal feature of the absolute truth. So we know many stories of that. The four Kumar brothers and Shukadev Goswami, and our dear spiritual master Srila Prabhupada, who was a spiritual master and in the personal yoga, came in contact with Bhakti, with the chanting of Krishna's names, and was immediately attracted, i.e. their experience of the impersonal feature of the absolute truth, and became great devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. For example, there are the Kumar brothers, and there is the great Shukadev Goswami, who spoke the Srimad Bhagavatam thousands of years ago to King Parikshit. Although they were realized in the impersonal feature of God, they did not fall into debauchery or illicit activities or try to live in the world as if they were God. They were fortunate enough to come into contact with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or the devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and thus went beyond their limited realization of the absolute truth. Two types of people engage in the worship of the impersonal feature of God: those who are sincere and those who are insincere. If those who are sincere come into contact with a bona fide spiritual master, one who knows the Supreme Personality of Godhead, then they will go beyond the impersonal Brahman. So there's many situations where I've known God brothers or God sisters who actually followed the impersonal path. My spiritual master came into contact with the absolute truth and was immediately attracted to it. So that has a lot to say. They will move into the highest dimension of spiritual life, rendering loving service to the Supreme Person. But those who are insincere will be envious of the Supreme Person and will not want to hear anything about the worship of someone other than themselves, which is more of this extension of materialism, of the conditioned living entity just being about themselves. Except they've taken it now to a sort of spiritual dimension, like it's spiritual, it's just more materialism. Furthermore, they tend to fall down into all kinds of debauchery and illicit activities such as drinking, taking intoxicants, engaging in illicit sex, and so on. The devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead does not condemn those who worship the impersonal feature of God, but rather tries to enlighten them further, admitting that yes, you have realized the impersonal feature of the absolute truth, but now if you want to become actually spiritually perfect, then please worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that's all on Mantra 12. Really amazing, very educating chapter or mantra. Namaste.